Welcome to I'd Print That. I'm Joe, and this week I went ahead and printed some privacy hoods for the Logitech C920 cameras that I picked up. I've started doing a little bit of Twitch streaming, and that's in preparation for some other things I have planned, 3D printing related. I'll say more about those later on, but it'll be exciting. I did get my new printers finally set up in Repetier on my computer. I've got them set up. I know that they're working, and I've been compiling new models to print, so I'll start getting those done. I'm going to really work on dialing in my printers, getting them tuned just right so I get really great prints. That is in preparation for the new thing that I'm working on. In addition, I have started doing work on the active cooler again. I've been able to start doing a little bit of testing on that fan port to see if it's going to work for me or not. I should have hopefully more information on that next week. I do want to say thank you to my wife, who has been posting updates to the Twitter account. She's been doing a great job keeping things up to date. I have not stopped looking for somebody to take that task over. She has volunteered some of her time to getting those updates done just so it doesn't lag behind. I've been busy with all the other projects that I have been doing, and unfortunately I just haven't had a moment to get to. If you or somebody you know is interested in that, have them contact me via the website and we'll talk. Finally, the print of the month, the low poly Bulbasaur, it's still available. We'll go ahead and get some pictures of that posted. I will get those pictures sent over to my wife, and she'll send those out via the Twitter account, and who knows, maybe even Instagram, so y'all can see what they look like. And if you want one, you can go out to Patreon and pledge some money for it. So this week, I would like to take some time and go over a little bit of history and myths about additive technologies and 3D printing. Now, there are many people who quite often have an incorrect view about the technology. This is mostly because mainstream media has crafted a little bit of a false image of 3D printing. I want to go over 10 of the most popular myths and misconceptions that 3D printing has, and which you're more than likely to come across when you're talking with curious but more than likely improperly informed people. The first one of these is that 3D printing is a new technology. Now, most people think 3D printing is something that was created in the last couple of years. And the truth is, the first concepts and research that were conducted with additive technologies started in the 1970s. And the first working 3D printer was not created until 1984 by an American named Charles Hull, who would later establish 3D Systems. This first 3D printer used a technology where light is used to harden resin called stereolithography, or SLA. This would eventually be called 3D printing sometime later when the media discovered it and classified it as something new. The second thing is that 3D printing only allows you to print from plastics. And quite a few people who are new to 3D printing think that it will just allow them to print with plastic. And the reason behind this is because most people only see the low-budget 3D printers using FDM technology, which lets users create objects from thermoplastics, or plastics as they're commonly called. Owners of 3D printers know that 3D printing is focused on making solid objects using an additive method. This means creating objects by building it layer by layer and bonding it with different methods. There are actually 5 different types of 3D printing. First one using thermoplastics, or FDM. The second one using light-hardened resins, which is referred to as SLA, DLP, PolyJet, MJM, and CLIP. Third one is using gypsum powder in full color, or CJP. Fourth is using powdered plastics or metal welded with laser light, that's SLS or DMLS. and the fifth one using paper or film glued or welded layer by layer to each other, which is plotted by the shape of the object, or OLM. Each of these technologies is different and has a different use. It is because of that none of these technologies are the best. In addition, when you are 3D printing from metal, you can even say there are even more types of 3D printing technologies. 3D printing with FDM technologies is the only one which falls into the low-budget style of additive technology, so don't be fooled into thinking that it is the best one, because each style has its uses. Number 3. 3D printing is the hottest new technology and everybody is talking to it. Now, while you and I may talk a lot about 3D printing, it doesn't mean that it is the talk of the town. It's still a niche hobby that is dominated by a narrow group of specialists. The main beneficiaries of 3D printing are industry and advanced medicine, so you shouldn't expect to talk about 3D printers during dinner unless you're with other like-minded people or those who have questions about your hobby. Even the media treats 3D printing like a curiosity, which is one reason why articles are shown or published, because they are a sensation and are memorable, like the 3D printer that was sent to the International Space Station. Number 4. 3D printing will revolutionize everything around us. While 3D printing has revolutionized several facets of our life, there are many people who are not aware of it. Thanks to the use of additive technologies and rapid prototyping, a lot of production processes of vehicles, planes, or specialist tools and machines were sped up. It is also possible to carry out complicated surgical operations thanks to 3D printing. You can print implants, which are impossible to produce using other methods. These things don't concern your average Joe. Most people are not aware of it, and this is why the revolution still goes on. However, now that 3D printing of houses, food, or organs are topics for media, it may change since these are based on real occurrences and not just scientific research. 5. Now is a good time to get started in 3D printing before it's too late. It's said that if an idea is good, it is never too late to start and effectively be put into practice. However, starting in 3D printing can be problematic and complicated. Because 3D printing has existed for over 30 years, the companies who work in it have a very strong position, and competing with them is difficult, though it is not impossible. What will ultimately decide the success of your idea is not going to necessarily be its price, but more of the innovation of the products or services offered. Number 6. You can make money on 3D printing. Currently, there are a lot of low-budget 3D printer manufacturers. Each one is trying to undercut their competitor, which has created a race to the bottom, which means that they have the cheapest 3D printer on the market. Companies have to sacrifice something to do this, which can mean they lose features, the quality of their printers is less than expected, or they just don't have any available support. And if they try and add these items, they won't earn enough money to help them fight to survive. The only thing that will work is when the products are innovative, well-built, and supported. By doing this, it will help them stand above their competitors. So don't be fooled when somebody tells you the best printer to buy is a cheap printer. But we'll talk more about that here in a moment. Number 7. If I buy a 3D printer, I will get orders right away. Now, if you think that buying a 3D printer will mean that you will have customers lining up around the block for 3D printed items, then you're going to have a bad time. 3D printing is still a niche hobby, and not everyone is after a 3D printed wrench or Pokemon. It is best to do your research, collect orders, then buy your own machine. Jumping in feet first is not necessarily the best thing to do, especially when it comes to 3D printers. Education and knowing about your clients and your market will help you greatly. Number 8, people need 3D prints. Yes, interest in 3D printing is increasing, and it doesn't matter if people really need them or not. The problem is, people still don't know enough about it. The majority of potential customers don't have the slightest idea about 3D printing. The majority of companies still prefer traditional methods to prepare their prototypes using milling or casting because they are not aware of alternative methods. This leads me back to my 4th point. The average person sees that a 3D printer can print houses, pizza, or spare parts on a spaceship because they saw it on the TV, read it in the newspaper, or saw it on the internet. Number 9, quality 3D prints depend on the printer's abilities and not the printer itself. This is definitely not true. The quality of the print is generally the direct result of the amount of time you take to get it dialed in. Taking time to get familiar with the limitations of your printer is one of the most important things that you can do. You also need to be aware that not all 3D printing materials are created equally. This is why many companies have low-cost or no-cost filament samples. Finding the filament that works best in your printer is just as important to its tuning. And my last thing, number 10, 3D printing is expensive. Just because 3D printing is a niche hobby does not mean that it is expensive. There are plenty of low-cost, budget 3D printers that have an average price of around $500. And the materials average around $20 for a 1 kilogram spool of plastic. While the price of the physical hardware may not cost much, the time and learning curve should also be taken into consideration. 3D printers, no matter the price, are not plug and play. Some technical knowledge and patience is required. You need to figure that until you have your printer dialed in, that you should expect to fail a lot. That's why it is important to read reviews, listen to podcasts, watch videos, and stop by your local makerspace. Get educated before running out and buying your first 3D printer. You're going to thank yourself later, and you're going to thank me for passing that knowledge on to you. 3D printing is a fun hobby, but don't be fooled thinking that it's going to be more than that. This is something that I do for fun. I don't make money doing this. And while I plan on getting a 3D Hubs account set up at some point in the future, I don't think that it's going to pay my mortgage, gonna go pay my car payments, or take care of any of my other bills. It's just a hobby. It's something fun to do. I got into it because it's something that I can take my ideas, put them into a program, and then generate a physical item that I can hold and go, hey, that's pretty neat, and show my friends. And if they want one, I print it for them. It's not expensive for me to do. It just takes a little bit of my time, and with it being a hobby, hobbies are meant to be fun and help educate you. Moving on from that, I want to talk a little bit about a news item that Andrew and I covered here a few months back. We talked a little about a murder victim who the authorities were trying to get access to their phone using a 3D printed fingerprint that was coated in a little bit of a metallic powder. Well, evidently that did not work. So they went with a more traditional method, and the thing that eventually unlocked the phone was a 2D image of the dead man's fingerprints, which was enhanced manually to fill in gaps in the original image and rendered onto conductive paper. That's all it took. A simple sheet of conductive paper with an enhanced image unlocked the phone, and they were able to get access to those files. If you want to check out the full article, go to the blog and the website and click. It's soon to be a sad day for comic book fans everywhere. Icon amongst us is Alan Moore, who is the mind behind some of the greatest storylines or series, with the big two being Watchmen and Batman the Killing Joke. He has officially confirmed that he is retiring from comic books soon, and not out of any negative experience, but rather the sense that he has done what he can with the medium. So what is in his future? His plan is to try and to create in new spaces where he doesn't already reign as a creative god, with specific mentions of film and giant literary novels. There is no telling how his unique method of storytelling and extensive mix of knowledge and imagination will translate into those mediums, but many comic book fans would probably agree that if any creator is feeling done with their current comic creative abilities, it's probably best for everyone that they move on. Alan Moore's final comic book will include one final book of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And lastly, I want to take a moment to, this also kind of goes back to a previous thing that we talked about, which dealt with some copyright stuff. And open source software licenses and Creative Commons agreements have actually become part and parcel of the 3D printing industry. But now, industry experts have warned that they simply may not be up to the job and could cause some serious problems. We all know that intellectual property is going to become increasingly complex as 3D printing takes hold and we can 3D print the actual final product in our home or at a local 3D print shop. We also know that we need new laws to cope with the new industrial revolution. Nobody seems to have a clear vision of how it's going to work, but the open source and Creative Commons rules that many repositories and design communities rely on simply aren't up to the job. A lot of designers are happy to share their work, but as things stand, there's nothing to stop a company from taking the design and turning it into a commercial venture. By the letter of the law, the company doesn't even have to credit the creator, and they certainly don't have to pay them. This has caused some serious friction in the open source world. The likes of MakerBot have found themselves at the center of a storm of negative PR after starting with open source ideas and then integrating them into a closed-source design, but nobody could stop it. It is a problem that will keep getting worse, and companies are starting to realize the benefits of simply combing through the open-source communities for commercially viable products they can simply take. There is no research and development, almost no design work, and they can turn a design into a quick profit. The simple fact is that open source software and Creative Commons licenses simply weren't designed to deal with these kinds of issues. Some specific parts of an open source hardware project are often protected, and a large number of 3D printed objects are covered by a basic form of copyright, but utilitarian and basic objects aren't. Lawyers can even make a case for slight changes to complex objects that might look the same as the supposedly protected item in photographs. So even if a community or individual designer feels that they are simply showing a design or sharing it for non-commercial use, they may well find that they don't have protection that they thought was in place. It could get even more complex if a designer incorporates what they think is open source work into a larger project and then find themselves on the receiving end of a claim. That makes the whole field murky and complex. So, we will need some clarification. The University of Melbourne recently produced a website to help the general public get started with 3D printing and includes a thorough guide on the complexities of intellectual property and copyright law. This is a solid start, but it is a guide and it is a long way short of the answer that we need. As an industry, we need to address this problem sooner rather than later. Intellectual property is a thorny issue in any industry, but 3D printing removes production barriers like tooling, and it allows anybody with a suitable 3D printer to take a design and print the product within hours. And we have mentioned in the past that it's even possible to hack a 3D printer with just a smartphone and a recording. So a determined third party can copy almost any product without even needing access to the digital files. There are so many ways to access designs, from the software through the printing process, that we need a robust set of laws in place to deal with potential copyright infringement after the event. At the moment, we don't have them, and relying on laws that were designed for other things just isn't going to work. We need something better. This goes back to when we talked about Luby and other designers on Thingiverse having their 3D print files taken and then turned around and sold on eBay and other sites for a huge profit without any type of credit or compensation. So I, for one, feel that something needs to be done about this. I know that I have things that I have designed, and I have even looked at other people's items just as ideas for things that I have been looking at making. So having something in place that has, at least some teeth to help deter some of this is going to be necessary, especially with 3D printing becoming more and more popular. I'd be interested to see what your take is on this. Go ahead and go to the website, hit the contact button, and just send me an email. Let me know if this is something that you agree with or not. I'm quite curious to see what your take is on this. Is this required, or is this just a whole bunch of paranoia and we should worry about other more important things? Hit me up. I'd like to hear it. And before we wrap this up, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been listening, who sends me messages, shows their support. It's great. I love hearing from everybody. If you do listen and you haven't done so yet, go out to Twitter, go out to YouTube, SoundCloud, Instagram, Facebook. Give us a like, give us a follow. We're going to be posting more stuff to Twitter and Instagram, and probably doing a little more stuff on Facebook here in the near future. I've got a whole archive of images I need to get re-uploaded. I do need to get pictures out of the Bulbasaur print of the month. And if you haven't done so and you really want to show your support, go ahead and head out to Patreon. Go ahead and pledge us $1, or if you want a print of the month, pledge us $5, and you'll go ahead and get that print of the month. We really appreciate the support. It goes to help maintain and keep the podcast going. We've got some expenses, and every penny is useful. If you don't want to go out to Patreon and give a pledge there, you can always go to our website, I'dPrintThat.com, click on the supplies button at the top. There's a whole list of 3D printing supplies that you can purchase. You'll go ahead and get the same Amazon experience that you always get, but it gives us a little bit of a kickback by using our affiliates account. And if you want something specific, I am working on getting just a generic affiliates link available, so you can go out, click on the affiliates link, and then buy whatever you want, and we get a small portion of that. So you're basically supporting us by continuing your Amazon habit. Thank you. That about does it for this week. I'm Joe, and remember, if you can imagine it, you can print it.